Hi, I'm here today to talk a little bit about my new polysynth. This is called Delta. This is what it is here at the moment. This is a prototype and a technology demonstrator, as I'm calling it. So I'll play you a few sounds. And here's another sound. Delta is, in this incarnation, currently is 8 voices, but I'm aiming for at least 16, if not 32. So in this prototype, it is only 8 voices at the moment. The voice architecture, you have 3 oscillators going into those digital oscillators going into an analog filter with 15, 16 modes, depending on how you look at it, into an analog VCA and then out. There are no effects on this at the moment, so this is just the sound engine is what I've been focusing on. Along with that, you have 4 LFOs. These are global LFOs. And they can go up to around 12 kilohertz of audio, so well into audio. You have 2 envelopes per voice, one for filter, one for VCA. And you have 8 modifiers. Now these are attack decay or attack sustain release loopable envelopes, which I'll come on to in a bit. So a little bit about the menu system and how the menu system works. Once you've got a sound loaded, you can see it here. If you want to edit something, you can press oscillator and you can see the oscillator screen come up. And then you've got oscillator 1, 2 and 3. So I can press oscillator 1 there, or 2 for that one, 3 for that one. And then to edit the settings, you can turn the knob here and you can see it changing the waveform. And then if you want to edit something else, you can press in, which brings the 2 context things in. So here I can choose a modulation source. Let's just pick that one just for the sheer hell of it. Then I can change the modulation depth. Nice thing is the menu remembers. So if I go to oscillator 2, I can twiddle something like this over here and go back to oscillator 1 and it remembers that I'm on this level of the menu. So that's pretty simple to get to the VCF. There you go. VCF screen, you've got all the parameters there. I've tried to keep as much of the sort of urgent, important parameters out and easy to access as I can. VCA, 2 modulation sources as well as the envelope. It's pretty straightforward. The LFOs, again, 4 LFOs, so you can press 1, 2, 3 or 4. You can modulate the speed of the LFO and you can modulate the depth of the LFO. At the moment, some of the modulation sources don't make a lot of sense because I've only got the polyphonic mode implemented. But you can modulate an LFO from another LFO or from aftertouch or velocity or note or any of the usual things. But when you're in mono mode or unison mode, you'll be able to modulate the LFO from an envelope or a modifier or whatever else you feel like. We'll go on to EGs next. Again, we've got 2 EGs, so 1 is the filter and 2 is the VCA. And that's pretty straightforward. Nice thing to note about the VCA envelopes, and their VCF envelopes, sorry, is you can change the shape to linear or exponential for the attack, decay and release. There is also a reset, so on new key press it will reset the envelope back to 0 every time. If you leave it off, sorry, wrong way, if you leave it off, then it will carry on from where it was on the release curve when you re-trigger the envelope. So what are we on to now? Modifiers. So these I'll come on to in a bit and I'll show you, but again, you've got 8 of these. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These are per voice. So you have 8 loopable envelopes per voice plus the AG per voice. So there's quite a lot of modulation there. That's it for the moment. The keyboard, the effects and the global screen don't do anything at the moment because I haven't got that far with it. So let's have a quick run through with the oscillators. I've loaded an init patch, which is just straightforward sawtooths with a filter wide open. Nothing exciting. So we go to the oscillator and we'll explain a little bit about here. Now these are using an expansion on the window transform function oscillators, or WTF oscillators. These are the WTAF, so the window transform advanced function oscillators. So we'll start with the simple part first. So each oscillator has a front and a rear waveform. So here I've got the front waveform, and I can play a note and I can move through the wavetable. So it's quite a smooth wavetable moving through. Now, what you can also have is a rear waveform. Now, if I change that, you won't hear anything because what I haven't done is open the window up. So if I open the window up a little bit, so what it does is it opens a small portion of the window in the middle at the moment, because I've got the window position set to middle, which I'll come on to, and that lets a little bit of the rear waveform come through. So if I go for a square wave, there we go, sort of square wave, and bring it through, you'll get a bit of a sawtooth, and then it will jump up to the square wave and back down again as I open the window, starting with just a sawtooth. And then at the end, you can hear the window's fully open, so all I've got is the rear waveform. At which point changing the front wave makes no difference. So that's how the window works. Now with the WTAF, one of the nice things you can do is you can move the window. So if I open the window a little bit, so that's my sawtooth. That's my sort of halfway sine wave. Let's make that a square wave. There we go. I can open the window. I can move the window, which is a new thing. So that's quite a new feature, and what that lets you do is you say this will give you, on this side, you'd have a sawtooth to start with, and then a bit of a square wave. So it's quite a unique feature. So what other things have we got here? So another nice thing we can do is we can modulate the phase of the waveforms as well. So let's turn the window down. We've just got sawtooth, and I can move the phase of it. Now, when you're doing this manually, it's going to sound like I'm pitch bending it. So let's put that down to 0. Not much you can tell difference-wise there. But if I open a bit of window, put on, let's have a square wave again, because the square wave's a nice easy one for people to visualize. We're going to adjust the phase of the rear waveform this time. So this is another way you can morph things. You can have, so instead of having this square wave dead in the middle as it's shown on the screen here, it'll shift it slightly left or right. Which is, as far as I'm aware, a unique feature. You've got modulation sources, of course, for the waveform, for the front, rear waveform, the window width, front phase, rear phase, and the window position. You've also got 2 tune pitch modulation sources. So this one is a coarse one, and this one is a fine one. You can also invert the rear waveform. So if I have 2 sawtooths and I've got the window open, it just sounds like a sawtooth. There we go, invert the rear one, we get something quite different. The other thing with the FM is this all runs at full audio rate. So if you've got a 12 kilohertz LFO coming in, well, it's not really an LFO at 12 kilohertz, you can then modulate the pitch of the oscillators at 12 kilohertz, along with everything else. So everything else happens at around, I think from memory, it's around 100 kilohertz sample rate. So it's plenty fast enough. It's got plenty of modulation. It's a little bit bonkers. We have, of course, got sync, hard sync between the oscillators. So what I've done here is you can sync oscillator 2 to oscillator 1 as fairly normal, oscillator 3 to oscillator 1 as normal, but you've also got the option to sync oscillator 3 to oscillator 2. So you can have two different sort of syncy, sweepy envelopes coming on. There's a patch I've got later on. Let's see if I can find it actually, and I'll show you where I've made good use of that. Where is it? Where are you, kitchen? There it is. Load the patch. So here I've got one oscillator sweeping down and another one sweeping up and down, hard sync sounds. So you get a sort of double sync sweep. So that's the sync sound. So let's run through the VCF. Again, I've got an init patch here. With my sawtooth, I can open and close the filter. Now we're currently in a 4-pole low pass mode. We can turn the resonance up or all the way up. So one of the other interesting things to note is all the pots are 9-bit resolution, so I can go from 0 to 511, which gives me a nice smooth filter sweep. Something that not many other synths, as far as I know, no other synths do, but I could be wrong with that one. So let's turn the keyboard follow down to 0. So the filter modes, what these L's represent, and as you'll see later there are L's and H's, there are 4 poles and they are various configurations. So here we have 2 poles that are low pass and then the other 2 are skipped. So this is a 2-pole low pass. Bit resonance. 2-pole low pass. These aren't in any particular order at the moment. So this is the 4-pole low pass. And then we've got 1-pole low pass. And resonance behaves slightly differently on each one, as you can hear. And then I think we get 3-pole low pass next. And then we get onto some other funny ones. So this is a 1-pole band pass. Turn the resonance up. That's probably a bit too much. So the filters all behave a little bit different depending on what mode you've got. We've got a high pass followed by 3 low passes. So it's quite good for taking a little bit of bottom out of your sound. We've got a high pass mode. It's a 1-pole high pass. And we've got a 1-pole high pass and 2-pole low pass. Again, the resonance is there on all of these, just behaves a little bit differently for each one. What's next? A low pole and a high pass. This is an alternate to where before we had a high pass and then a low pass. So without resonance it sounds much the same, but with resonance it sounds a bit more comb filtery. It's quite a different sound. Then we've got low pass, high pass, low pass, low pass, which again is similar to where we had a high pass and 3 low passes. And for most of it you won't tell the difference again until you bring the resonance in. And then it behaves differently. Then you've got the second low pass mode. This is where I played with the feedback route. So the resonance is a little bit more in your face. It's kind of boosted as well, so it gives you a bit more grunt, a little bit of overdrive as well. And then we've got another low pass, high pass, low pass mode. Again, these all sound slightly different. Now we've got a 2-pole high pass, 2-pole band pass, so this is 2 highs and 2 lows. That one can get really quite gnarly. And we've got high pass 2. Again, this one the resonance is really vicious. I did warn you, it's not even full resonance. And then you've got high, high, low. And that's it, so that's those ones. So that's all the filter modes you've got. Again, we've got two modulation sources for the filter cutoff, and we've got one for the resonance, so you can modulate the resonance as well as the filter cutoff. You've also got a velocity depth, key follow, and down here EG depth. So the other thing you can do here is access the level control for the three oscillators. So here you can see I've only got oscillator 1 turned up. I'll bring up oscillator 2 and oscillator 3. Let's go on to oscillator 3 and let's drop it down an octave just to make it sound a bit beefy. There we go. Oscillator 2's fine tune is on 8. Oscillator 3's on 0. We'll knock that off a little bit just to give it a bit of character. So, plenty to do with the filter. Next thing to talk about is the envelope generators. So I'll go to the envelope generators. We've got two, as I said before. One is the VCF, two is the VCA. You've got the different controls for the shapes. So they go from really quick to, you know, a reasonably long time. Let's take the velocity to speed thing off. Take the release time up. That's really long release time. Each curve can also have its own shape. I tend to keep them in exponential because it's a bit more like what you get with an analog envelope generator. So that's what you tend to get. But you can put them in linear, which changes the sound quite considerably. It makes everything sound like it's a lot longer than it actually is. Turn that down because that's a bit long. And you can also route the velocity to the speed of the envelope and the velocity to the level of the envelope. And this is the same for the filter envelope and the amplifier envelope. They're identical. So the next thing to talk about is the LFOs. We have 4 LFOs, as I've said before, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they come with a variety of shapes and speeds and options. So first things first is let's go to the oscillator and route LFO1 to the pitch. So this is a good example of how to use the routing. So I want to do the really big oscillator pitch control, so I'll go for that one. We'll have LFO1 there, and I'll change the depth. That's oscillator 3. I'll go to oscillator 1, sorry, and we'll go down to the modulation source, and we'll pick LFO1. There we go, and change the depth. So as you can hear on that one, it's quite coarse. I can tweak these as needed. So let's go back to the LFO screen. So that's a speed of 30. So on speed 0, it actually takes about, I think it's 20 seconds to do a complete LFO loop. So it's a bit boring. So that's the slow speed. I can put this in, and what this does is multiply the speed by, I think it's 16, might be 8. So as you can see, it can go really fast with the LFOs. So we've got a variety of shapes. I'm just going to turn that depth down because that's a little bit obscene. There we go. So we've got a variety of shapes. We've got the traditional sine. We've got triangle. Saw up, of course. And guess what? Saw down. We also have square. And random. And again, you can modulate the speed of this from another source. As I said, not so useful for some of the sources when you're in polyphonic mode as you are now, because, for example, you can pick, let's pick modifier 2. That's only modifier 2 of voice 1. So when you're in solo or stack mode, this will be a lot more useful. I need to tweak the menu. But yes, as you can see, you can have pitch, bend, wheel, CVs. There's 2 CV inputs on this. Expression, touch, velocity, note, gate, whatever you want to control the speed. And you can do the same with the level. So quite handy. So the next thing to talk about is the modifiers. So I've loaded an init sound again. Let's set up a modulation source for the pitch, and we're going to go to modifier 1. That seems like a healthy amount there. So go to the modifier, and what you can see here is you've got it in attack decay mode. So it goes up and it goes down and it stops. I can change the rise time. And change the fall time. Now you can put these independently into linear or exponential mode. So we'll just have linear on the attack and a nice quick exponential decay. Or we can have 2 exponential. We can have an exponential linear, depending on what you prefer. The next mode to talk about really is the attack sustain release mode. So I'm going to go to the envelope generator and turn the release of the VCA up a bit so you can hear it, and I should probably do the same for the filter EG. There we go. So in attack sustain release mode, it goes up, it holds the top value, and then when you release the key, it drops. So that's it staying there, and then it fades away. The next one is the fun one, which is the LFO mode. So here, these are basically is just constantly looping rise and fall time. And of course, I can change the rates, so they're different. So that's what you can do with these. There is a key sync function again, so it will restart when you press a new note every time. And there is also a square function. So what this does is it gives you a high on the rise time and a low on the fall time. So if I do this and turn on the square, and of course there is the option to control the level or depth, if you like, of the modifier itself. This can be controlled from another modifier, an LFO, the same usual list of sources. So the list of sources is the same throughout. So you've got gate, note, velocity, touch, so that's after touch, pitch bend, the modulation wheel, expression, CV1, CV2. As I mentioned before, there are 2 CV inputs. There's a filter envelope, attack envelope, VCA envelope, LFO1, LFO2, LFO3, LFO4, and then you've got the 8 modifiers. And then just if that wasn't enough, you've got oscillator 1, 2 and 3 as well. So there are plenty of options for your modulation sources. So finally, there are a few bugs. The modifiers occasionally crash. I don't know what that is yet. There's a couple of things, like sometimes if you're tweaking a parameter and playing, that you'll get a held key. To get rid of that for the moment, you just push the red button and it stops all the voices and resets things. And there's a few other bits and pieces that need working with. The complication for me is this is an FPGA based, so this is one FPGA doing 8 voices worth of 3 oscillators, 2 envelopes, 8 modifiers, 4 global LFOs, and all the modulation and stuff. So there's a lot going on in there. To get more voices, we need to have more FPGAs. Now, I'm unsure if I can get the FPGAs to sync and things, so I'm kind of rethinking this at the moment. But for now, let's play a few more sounds just to give you a feel for the synth. I'm also going to play a mix of the sort of analogue-y ones and the digital ones, just to prove it's not just digital only. So that was that sound. Let's go for another one. I was picking up the next one on the list. Kitchen sink, which I played a little bit earlier, but there we go, kitchen sink. That's hard sync sound. As I said, you've got 2 types of sync going on in one voice. Let's pick another sound. Let's go for number 2. What's number 2? Oh, this is a nice one. This is digital bell sound. What else have we got in here? Oh, let's do number 6. I don't know what this one sounds like. I can't remember. It's a nice FME type table sweep, although it's not FM, it's just a table sweep. What else have we got in here? Number 7. This is a nice string sound. And I've routed velocity to the filter cutoff. What are the ones we got in here? We've got sort of 80s bass sound. Number 9, what's this one? Oh, this was quite a good fun one to play with. What else have we got in here? Oh, we've got FM bells. There we go. So this is just 3 oscillators with sine waves, and they're all doing FM with each other. There is a little bit of a problem with the high frequency when you're doing FM, but if you look at oscillator 2, you will see that it's already shifted up a couple of octaves, and the oscillator 3 is almost up 3 octaves. So it's fairly high range, but that needs sorting. Again, it's not perfect yet. Number 12 is a retro strings, kind of similar, to be a little bit of a Logan string machine. And that's courtesy of the filter being in one of its funny modes. What else have we got in here? Sooty and sweep, a generic sort of sweepy whooshy sound. Window position modifier. So you can do some quite harsh sounds. This was one I played at the beginning, I think, from memory. Don't get much more 80s than a good bit of wavetable. 17. This is square cubed. So this uses the oscillators with the window mode set up in such a way that you're effectively getting not just PWM, but you're getting 3 lots of pulse width modulation on one oscillator. And I put a little sharp bit of attack from a modifier on there as well. So quite an in-your-face sound, that one. And then I've got one here where I have routed the velocity to the filter cutoff, I think, from memory. Yeah, filter cutoff. And that again is just one voice playing at a time because it's still in polyphonic mode. So you can play chords if you really want to with a bass sound. So that's the kind of sounds I've made at the moment. This one's probably one of my favourites, and it starts off morphing, using the windows, morphing from a sawtooth through to a vocally sound. So you can do wave morphs that are not strictly in the order of the waveforms by using the windowing function. So that's it. There we go. Thank you for watching. I have no idea how long this video is going to be, but it gives you an idea of some of the sounds, where I am. It's in a case, it's in a box. It still needs a lot of work, but it's a good demonstrator of where I'm at with the synth. So thanks for watching.